Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Before we begin, the Grandel Wrestling Podcast would like to salute our partners who make all this possible. First, the St. Louis Kings of the Calzone, sauce on the side in the Grove. You can't go wrong with the Pancho Villa or one of their dessert calzones. There is an art to this dish, and there is one master artist of the calzone, sauce on the side. Dine in, carry out, or delivery. We'd also like to welcome the newest member of our family, the Southwest Diner. Serving up diner staples and foods of the American Southwest, Southwest Diner has been a favorite of locals and visitors alike since 2012. If you're into the classics, you can't go wrong with the biscuits and homemade sausage gravy. You like spice? Dig into Jonathan's famous fiery scramble. They also do an excellent smash burger. You gotta check it out. The crispy edges are amazing. Now offering delivery, curbside pickup, and a brand spanking new patio. There are plenty of safe and enjoyable ways to get your Southwest Diner fix. And now, on with the show. Hey there, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of the Grandel Wrestling Podcast. My name is Ben Simon, and I'm joined by the Gateway Heritage Champion himself, Gary J. Gary, welcome to the show.
You sound super excited. By the way, I love doing impressions of you doing ring announcing.
Oh.
This has nothing to do with the interview, but this is how we're doing this.
Okay.
So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the beautiful South Broadway Athletic Club. Nowhere near as good as you. But I like to do that in my free time when I spend many days and hours in a car.
I appreciate it. That was very good. That's my opening line.
Can you do it
now? Well, I don't know if they sound check this properly.
You'll be all right. You can do it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here with Gary J. That's awesome. Hey, I appreciate the impersonation, and as long as it's better than Midnight Guthrie, my lifelong rival, we're okay.
Oh, man. I can't talk about that guy. He's quasi-canceled. Moving on.
Oh, man, I forgot about that. Hey, Gary, I was on Cage Match today, just kind of stalking your career, booking up on this interview here, and you have one review. And I want to read this to you. It says, Gary J is a great talent that has been around forever. He's indie to the death, and his death could come at any moment as Jay takes insane bumps that defy physical limitations. If you're a fan of big, beefy TV wrestlers, Gary isn't for you. But if you're down to watch a grizzled, tough, old ginger get drop on his head, the stiff Robo Ginger is someone you need to check out. Do you agree with that assessment?
I'm pretty sure Sean Orleans wrote that. It's funny. I actually read that a while. It's been up there a while. Man, that's a lot into a huge sentence. And obviously, we all know I don't talk correctly. Let's basically say I agree with parts of it. But at the same time, I think there's more to me than just insane bumps. Yeah, I know. I do a lot of crazy shit. But a lot of times, like the Joker, there's a method to my madness. And a lot of people, what do you mean, Joker? There's a method to that guy's madness. I know he's a comic book character by all means, but guess what? We live in a comic book world. It's professional wrestling. So yeah, there's a method to my madness. There's a reason why I do a lot of the stuff I do. But at the end of the day, it's that emotional investment with the audience that I would agree with anything more, like anything. You connect with them, you can do anything you want.
For sure. Now, the history of you and St. Louis Anarchy is so closely intertwined, going back 20 years. And I'm going to be talking about St. Louis Anarchy plenty today. But you started in, hey, look at the belt. Look at that. About 20 years ago, or even longer, with a really low-budget company that eventually, after ownership changes and everything, ups and downs, became today's St. Louis Anarchy. How'd you get started in this business?
Oh, man. Let's see. I was probably around 12, 13, or 14, and I would spend every summer outside of my trailer in Fent, Missouri, Chancellor Farms, props. And, I would just set up a mattress right by the shed, and I would set up a ladder, and I would just jump off the ladder for hours on the mattress because I just wanted to be a professional wrestler. And I was like, well, this is clearly how you do it.
Mick Foley told us so.
Yeah, exactly. I saw him jump off a roof. Don't worry, I jumped off my shed. Nowhere near as iconic as Mick Foley. I'll never be that iconic. Now I just think of the Iconics posing in my head. But yeah, basically like started dabbling and fooling around in my side yard, not backyard. I was a side yard wrestler. I don't condone that backyard wrestling. That'll hurt you. Side yard wrestling? Not so much. And then I eventually meet Matt Jackson in high school. And I actually ended up being friends with his best friend first, Pete. Can't really talk about Pete much. He may be in jail right now.
Whoa.
I'm not going to tell you why. A very adult reason why, and it's a no-no. But anyways, he used to wrestle too as well, Peter Townsley. So if you look at the early years of like 2003 and 4 Lethal Wrestling Alliance, he's Peter Townsley. He's a lawyer. Mm-hmm. He loved the backbreaker. That was his favorite move. He would do the backbreaker all the time to the point where that's all he did was the backbreaker. And not like cool Roderick Strong backbreaker. We're talking just like side backbreaker. Pretty dull and boring. The guy's cardio was shit. He was a shit ball. He was an all right human being, kind of. Obviously, he's in jail now, though. Moving on.
Man, you were just leaving a whole bunch of unanswered questions.
I'm not going to talk about why he's in jail
Okay,
because it's like a no-no.
We don't have to. That's fine. You mentioned the Lethal Wrestling Alliance. For those who don't know, a direct predecessor to St. Louis Anarchy.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw you was in the Lethal Wrestling Alliance as Gary the Barnow.
Oh, that was a hoot. Get it? Yeah, basically, I was given the Barnow character by Jordan Taylor. At the time, was like someone who was best friends with Adam Ross, Sam Richardson, who owns his own gym, I think, in Fenton now. Personal trainer, aficionado, loves cartoons, great artist. He's actually drawn some of my tattoos. And overall, like the guy that like put a lot of time into like training me in those early years. Him and Jordan Taylor gave us all characters because in the ring, we were not good. We didn't know what we were doing. We were fumbling around, just like anybody, you know, like right. I went from the side yard to a wrestling ring, like a whole different world. So they gave me Gary the Barn Owl because they're like, well, we're just going to give you a character and a gimmick and see what you can do with that. And like they give me ideas and stuff. I hated it. If you listen to anything I've ever talked about the early years, I hated being Gary the Barn Owl.
Really?
Well, yeah, because I wanted to be Jeff Hardy. Like, yeah. I've always said that. It's like Jeff Hardy was my guy.
You and everyone else, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Too bad I don't get the pay he gets. But anyways, like, Jeff Hardy was my guy. So I wanted to be Extreme Gary J. And I was one time in 2003 for my, like, first wrestling match, which was against the Prodigy, or as everybody in the area knows, Matt Jackson or Pierre Abernathy. So we worked. It was in, like, the Fairview Heights, Knights of Columbus in 2003 for Extreme Wrestling Alliance. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can look that up online, probably.
Well, you had to grow some kind of affection for Gary the Barn Owl after a while because you had it for a few years.
Yeah,
longer.
I ended up loving it. It was super fun. I didn't have to talk because before I really got into like talking a lot in front of people, I was terrified. Mm-hmm. Stage fright is always a thing. I still get like stage fright or like morally just anxiety now before my music hits and I walk out the curtain. So I do a stupid little jump up and down, like I know what I'm doing, and I go out the curtain. But yeah, like Gary the Barn Owl ended up growing on me. It really helped me develop into like facial mannerisms, using my body for body language because, you know, I couldn't talk.
Right.
So like, obviously, which is ironic because a lot of people might not know because I really don't talk about this, but like I would watch a lot of Delirious because like Delirious's character is a lot of like body movement, body language. He would talk, but in his own Delirious gibberish, which is ironic because Delirious is a native and one of the people who really made the base of St. Louis wrestling, in my opinion, one of them. So like I'd always like watch a lot of his stuff, and there was a time where there was a promo with Gary the Barn Owl and Delirious in House Springs.
No way.
Yeah, I believe at one point I was set up to wrestle AJ Styles somehow. I would have failed terribly and probably quit the business as soon as the match was over because I wasn't ready. But like this was all in the works, and it just never came through because indie wrestling. Yeah. I don't blame anybody. It is what it is. But yeah, like I'd watch a lot of Delirious, and ironically, even farther backstory, before I even started doing side yard wrestling, we'd go to Aggie's on Friday nights for adults F and only for GCW.
Was that the place on South Broadway?
Yep, it was right, like almost directly across the street, almost
from
like,
the SBAC.
Yep.
Yeah, the athletic club. Yeah.
And someone who I consider a very close friend now, which people don't know, is Billy Mcneil. Like I'm actually talking to him a lot recently because we haven't really talked a lot, but he was like one of my first heroes. Like I was Billy Mcneil was like the guy, and then you had like Dingo, who obviously he's Dingo, and then the Matt Seidel is the CJ McManus's, and then Delirious. Oh, and let's not forget about two of my favorites, Pete Madden and tip my tongue, blonde hair, the Alaskan heartthrob, Jack Adonis.
Man, I'm going to tell you what, Pete Madden just got back in the ring
I love
locally
Pete.
a few weeks ago.
I
Yeah.
love Pete.
The
So,
human
Pete,
wrecking ball.
if you watch this, you are an inspiration, and you are one of the guys, I believe, that helped pave the way for guys like me. And like people are like, who's Pete Madden? Check him out. He's awesome. He's the man. He's the reason there's a dingo. Like, seriously. Anyways, I could go on this diatribe for hours, but all those guys were inspirations, and then I ended up getting into it. And I ended up being friends with a lot of them. Like, Dingo's the man, and I will say 1,000 times over, thank you so much for everything you did for me. So, like, hopefully I can pay it forward. That's my long goal.
One of the real assets to the area, no doubt, and its history is Dingo. Gary, every individual wrestler can find themselves stronger with a posse, and you joined up with the second most famous Matt Jackson in pro wrestling, Pierre Abernathy, Evangelistico, and Davey Vega as the Submission Squad. How did this come about? And it was a real life friendship. I mean, you guys were the four St. Louis guys for a while, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's funny because the original Submission Squad is Nick Tyson, Dingo, Pierre Abernathy. We were traveling to Texas all the time. Dingo ended up having to do other things. Nick Tyson just disappeared off the face of the earth. And then, so you had Evan, who jumps in the car. And then Evan and Pierre were the tag team. I was babyface down in Texas for a while when we first started going down there in like 2005 and 6. So like, eventually though, I joined up with them because why wouldn't I? Like, we travel. People at this point, kayfabe is like, oh, you guys hang out a lot and travel a lot together. You might as well just be together. And that was the same time in the area when I was transitioning to like learning how to be like Gary J and talk and like do things. So I wanted to get out of the gimmick of like being a barn owl and just hooting, because eventually that has its glass ceiling.
It has its lifespan.
So, and then Vega got involved with basically just Dingo was like, hey, I'm training this kid down at the gym. He's really good, Davey Vega. Matt was like, okay, well, he comes to House Springs, has his first match, and if you ever talk to Vega, he was having a panic attack before his first match. Dude couldn't barely walk, breathe, and talk. He was so nervous. Now look at him. He's one of the aces of anywhere he goes. He's a man. But like he ended up traveling down with us, and then that ended up just being like natural thing. But like, I'm not one of the original members. It's Tyson, Dingo, and Pierre. I guess Evan Cork, kind of shoehorns his way in there too. But like, people think of that name, you're gonna think of the four of us. Fun fact: Athena's in the Submission Squad.
Yeah, I heard about that, but I must have missed it myself.
Short time. We met Athena in ACH.
Athena WWE Ember Moon.
Yeah. Not anymore.
Right.
She's got like 20-something days left on her contract, I think.
Really?
Not like I pay attention. But she ended up joining the squad because, once again, put him with the squad, help her with character development, help her with promos. Because at that time, we were just doing fun promos and goofing off, having a good time. At that point, it was just, that's what it was about. Like, in-ring was fun, but like, I wish I would have focused more on in-ring a little bit back then compared to like just shtick and goofy stuff. Because then I would have probably been better quicker. Yeah. But you don't know. You live, you learn.
The funniest Submission Squad story I've ever heard is one, I'm not sure how much truth there is to it. But in 2012, Chikara had their biggest event, King of Trios. And the four of you guys were going to be the first quad ever to be in this three-man team tournament, basically a bunch of six-man tags. And you were going to be the only four-man team entered, but you had travel issues, and you got straight up replaced in the event, but still made it to the venue in Pennsylvania. What happened there?
Yeah, we broke down right across the street from the venue. That's once again,
the fans loved it, by the way, that you were no longer in the tournament.
Oh yeah, we were mortal enemy number one in Jakara for a long time for no reason, because people didn't like us in 2009. We didn't belong on the King of Trios. That's the backstory, if you know what I'm talking about. We had an LWA showcase match in 2009 in the ECW arena. Gary the Barn Owl, Davey Vega versus the Submission Squad. Evan and Pierre were the worst gear I've ever seen in my life. I'm sorry, guys. It was terrible. God, my hair is just voluptuous.
It's great. Yeah, look at that.
Anyways, So we go out there and we have a terrible 6-7 minute match. I didn't belong on that card. That's the same weekend you had like Dave Taylor was there, Quackenbush was there, Danielson. Like it was probably the most stacked King of Trios they've ever done. Mm-hmm. And we knew Mike because we'd used him for LWA and we ended up being cool with them. He's like, hey, can't get in King of Trios this year, but if you guys want an opportunity, how about we do an LWA showcase match? Should have been like, now we're good. But you live, you learn. We went and did it. It wasn't a bad match. It was just, we didn't belong there. Like, come on, Dave Taylor's sitting right next to me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go outside. You have El Generico, Jigsaw, one of the Young Bucks, and Kota Ibushi in a four-way that night. Probably the best four-way I've ever seen in person and watching it again and again and again. And yet you have these four schmucks from St. Louis that no one in the arena knows. We got booed out of the arena. It was awesome. It's one of my highlights of my career because I can at least say I walked into a place that I idolized and it was like church. I walked into that building and I got to say at least once, and hopefully it happen again before, R.I.P. Gary, I get to wrestle in the ECW arena. I was like, that was a goal as soon as I realized I could be a professional wrestler. I did. You can straight ask Matt. I cried when I walked into that arena. It was just like, this is the ECW arena. This is 2300, Rittner Street, I think is the street it's on. It's just insane. And it's even before they had the ECW mural in the bathroom that everybody gets the picture with now. I didn't get that. I could hang out with Al Snow.
Well, I'm glad we cleared that up.
Yeah.
The big event that happened in St. Louis at the end of 2016, when the big investor from Kansas City, Major Baisden, wanted to buy a promotion from St. Louis to compete with his Kansas City promotion that he purchased from Chris Goff, Metro Pro, and they were going to be the National Wrestling League. Longtime viewers of this show know I talk about that almost maybe every other show because we have a lot of former NWL talent, and it's kind of a fever dream of an era nowadays. But we thought at the time it might be kind of special. You were an interesting case at first because even though Gary J had his moments in the NWL, you debuted as Jay Lutz, the town drunk. What was this your idea? How much was your idea?
Ironically, I'd watched some of your past shows, and I'm like, man. And I get people have a sour taste about like what happened and what didn't happen, but I'm like one of the reasons I wanted to do this because I'd like to tell you my side of it.
Please do.
And but like everybody's got their own like, oh, this and this. Well, like I was there the whole time. Mm-hmm. I was part-time, my choice. Like I was always treated well. I loved getting paid. Got my PayPal, or not even PayPal, straight to my bank account. Mm-hmm. Like that never happens. Nowadays, everything's PayPal because of COVID. But like, so Jay Lutz, my idea. My actual like last name, like before I was adopted, is Lutz. And I like Jay was easy, James is my middle name. Oops, kayfabe. And then, that's where Jay came from. So I was like Jay Lutz. And I love that shirt, that tank top they made for me. Or I have a couple of them. That's my favorite drinking shirt, ironically. So Jay Lutz was my idea. The only thing that I had ever really thought about, because obviously, you've heard about the conference calls about like, what do you want your character to be? We want to market this and this. And like, I was always for it. I was like, it's different. Because at the time, like Gary J was just starting to get some steam, like all over the country. And then obviously in St. Louis, you knew the name Gary J. Like, oh, that's that guy.
Keeping Gary J, though, was not an option, though. In NWA.
No, not at first, which is fine. And I wasn't against it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and go, this is something different. I can kind of see what I can do without like the crutch of being myself. I actually have to be a character, which is fine, because if you go to a big company that is going to pay you a lot of money and then like, that's your lifelong goal, like you're not going to really be able to be yourself. I mean, you could, but most times you might do something else first. That's usually how it works. So if I were to ever go to NXT, or I would say NXT now, because a lot of AEW guys are pretty much themselves now, but how many of those guys aren't ready for TV? But that's a different conversation. But like NXT signs me, they're not going to go, yo, you're Gary J, you should do all the same stuff you've always done. That's a rare occasion. Oddly, I'm probably going to be a milkman, and I'm going to have to work with that. which is cool because I like milk. Calcium's good. But like, so anyways, Jay Lutz gave me an avenue to go, what can I do? And actually, Jay Lutz helped me with promos because Gary J before that would cut a promo and it would be boring and dry and stupid. Jay Lutz is like, well, I'm drunk. I'm supposed to be drunk. I can kind of carry on and goof off. I was like, oh, I can talk in front of a camera like I'm just at a bar. Yeah. So the Jay Lutz helped me develop into like more Gary J attributes after the NWL. Yeah. So like, I love the character. It was super fun. The matches were fun. They're like, obviously at first it was really rocky, as you've heard, but like, it just didn't work in St. Louis. The fans and the people were like, we're not having it, which is fine. So right before it shut down, where we had a lot of momentum going and a lot of steam going, like I think Major was just losing too much money on certain aspects. And that's the thing about Major. I don't know him personally other than, he's my boss. Always a stand-up dude, always super cool with me. I had no problems with him, but obviously I didn't deal with him a lot. I dealt with Matt and Chris Goff, Chris Goff, a lot of people kind of don't like him a lot, but the dude used to write for WWE. I mean, during the 98, 99 era, if not around then.
I think a little bit later, but you might be around there.
Yeah, I don't know the dates. He knew what he was doing. So I would follow Chris and Matt around during TV days after I was done or before, and I would learn how to do TV stuff, like help guys with promos and like help write, because I rather do more backstage stuff nowadays than in-ring. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I get to learn all this? Absolutely. This is a cool little screen we got here. I mean, come on. How many times can you walk out?
The giant screen.
Oh, yeah. It was awesome. It was so fun. And like, I got to travel with my friends and like make some money. And then, like I said, the house shows and TV in Kansas, Springfield, like Joplin, like everything was drawn like between 250 and almost 500 people.
Yeah.
St. Louis was the only one that didn't work. And I think since people think St. Louis didn't work, it was a failure. Or I know people had their differences, and that's fine. But to say it was straight up a disappointment and a failure is, to me, is a complete lie. Yeah. Because I don't think it was a failure. I just think Major was like, I got to shave some earnings and money. Unfortunately, I can't continue this. It's funny because what starts up with the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years later, AEW. Which obviously I'm not saying they blueprinted or stole anything, but a lot of similarities in the early AEW to what NWL was. Well, minus obviously the outlandish characters because they let you be you, but like, and like I said, that's just my point of view. And like, I'm right, you're wrong, it's all right.
Yeah, and I think there was a difficult time with the wrestlers and fans in St. Louis determining what part of Major Baisden's supposed disdain for St. Louis was real and what was show. And once the train was in motion, like, we don't like NWL STL because they made all of our favorites change their names, even though most of the favorites weren't opposed to that.
Yeah,
it was doomed to the low attendance in St. Louis, but yeah, other towns were rocking. Jay Lutz didn't really see his arc completed, but you came back as Gary J, and I think the greatest moment in the St. Louis portion of NWL history was you winning the St. Louis Championship from Moonshine Mantell, then known as Maverick, in St. Peters, Missouri. The crowd went ballistic.
Yep, and that was kind of like, the way all that happened was, obviously, Jay Lutz is gone. It's funny because the Jay Lutz character, like, the only problem that we ended up running into, like, in my own thought and like talking creative, is where do you go with that character? Okay, he drinks, he's sober, he comes back, and then he drinks more. It's like, what do you do with that? Right. So obviously, it ran its course, and the major thing with him shutting down the area, I think that was partly just frustration, and he didn't know how to like talk about his frustration without like sounding like an asshole. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't think he maliciously did it, but then he obviously made that, I'm shutting St. Louis down, which made everybody apparently in the area just their heads exploded like it was the end of the world. Right. Like, what do I do now? Oh my God. Well, you move on, man. You turn off your phone. Get off the internet. Come on.
Yeah.
So obviously that ends up swinging into the anarchy portion of like light anarchy, as people will say, which that's where Gary J won that title.
Yeah. The NWL STL was rebranded as Anarchy, basically.
Basically, it was like Major going, all right, Matt, you were kind of right about some of the things the whole time. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And Matt goes, okay, cool, let's do this. Boom, boom. Fitcher back. Gary's back.
And Jackson was running as the general manager of the St. Louis town.
He ended up being an on-screen character in Kansas. It was awesome. Him and Marty Bell, two peas in a pod, like great stuff. But like, so yeah, I win that title, the Spirit of St. Louis title, I think it was called.
You won it right before I think they changed it to the Spirit, so it was still St. Louis Championship. Okay. If I recall correctly.
I think I ended up renaming the title the Spirit of St. Louis.
Yeah,
that was a shtick. Yeah, and like that was like, okay, guys, we're sorry. That was like a sorry. We're gonna try to do better. And like, here's what we can do for you. Mm-hmm. I loved like anytime I work with Moonshine, like stuff like that, like pull the curtain back, like awesome. It's ironic. I didn't get there until like, I don't know, 8:30 that night. I was in Jersey the night before. Really? I had to travel 14 hours back, get in a car, because Kenway hurt his leg. So I had to drive Kenway with like a messed up leg. He tore something because it's Kenway. So I had to drive him. He got hurt on Friday in Tennessee, jumped in the car. We go to Jersey Saturday. I'll give him credit. He didn't peep, moan, cry about anything. He was hurt the whole time. We do the show and then jet back. So I win that title on like 3 days of being awake. And like, it was awesome. I felt it was like a moment, and it was also like, hey guys, we're sorry. Like, we get it. Like, we're going to do better. People make mistakes. We are human beings. And clearly you weren't liking the meal we were serving. So here's a different one.
Right.
So
the honeymoon is over. Eventually the NWO folds completely in April of 18. And the next logical move, St. Louis Anarchy has to return, and it's going to return home to Spalding Club in Alton. What was it like coming back to Anarchy? Were you disillusioned anymore that the fever dream of a multi-million-dollar investor was over, or were you content with it? How did you feel?
I was bummed out because at the time my best friend Matt Jackson lost his job.
It was a real job.
Yeah, he was full-time salary. He would work just about 9 to 5 every day. Ironically, he still works 9 to 5 with Anarchy, except now he's apparently everybody's therapist in the area too. Anyways, but like, yeah, he legit 9 to 5 with it, and like worked religiously on it, and like worked very hard. So I would be okay because I was only part-time. So like, I independent contractor, I can still travel the country, wrestle, and do what I have to do. He was like, oh man, like I got to book wrestling full-time, make good money. He's like, not a lot of people can say that. Like, you can book your wrestling show, but you're not making any money. You're hoping to produce a good show to make money. Mm-hmm. He was actually making good money, and like, he could take care of all his bills and save money. I was more bummed for him. Yeah. But you live, you learn, and then like life goes on. He was sitting in the kitchen one day, and I got home. That's right, I'm roommates with the booker. That's why I got this.
Oh no.
So anyways, I get home and he goes, well, the only logical thing we could do is just see what happens when I put this tweet out. That was hey, is this thing still on, from the Anarchy Twitter? That was only supposed to be a one-off show. He was like, maybe we do one more show, see what happens. We didn't realize that the impact St. Louis Anarchy had made on people until it was all gone.
Yeah.
Like, which is insane. And like, it's so cool to think about it. Like, we didn't think we were doing much in the early years of Anarchy, and then NWO happened. We're like, oh, well, all right, different chapter. Let's move on. That tweet, Matt was like, I put that tweet out, and I'd never seen him so excited to be like, wow, like, this is nuts. He's like, we'll do a one-off show, see what happens. And then that obviously turns into Anarchy's Return. And like, it was an honor, and it was cool for him to go, well, I guess the only logical main event would be you versus Warhorse. I was like, I'm cool with that, man. Like, I think that'll sell tickets, on top of the fact that, like, we're home.
Yeah.
And we didn't realize what home was until, like, the day of the show. We get there. I was like, wow, this place is packed. Like, people missed what we did in, like, our point of view on wrestling so much, to the point where, like, I had read people, like, I had to leave work early. I was so upset emotionally. I'm like, oh, my God, these are, like, grown-ups. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, like, it just blows my mind that, like, people were that invested in what we were doing. We just never knew.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about wrestling. There's a lot of bad stuff in wrestling, but there's so much cool shit in wrestling. It's like no one really wants to talk about that anymore. It's like, like this right here, we're both sitting here happy and giggling like kids, like, oh, that's just a cool moment. Like, so how happy was everybody to realize that we're going home?
Yeah.
Like, we're doing this again. And then obviously COVID shut us down after a hot run. And then, you know, by the graces of whatever you believe in, we finally get to go back home January 21st for Gateway to Anarchy.
The building was sold. I'm jumping a little bit out of order here, but the building was sold. We're not running in Spalding Club ever again. Pizza Ebert, our beloved pizza guy, may never see him again. Who knows what the future holds? But now, January 21, 2022, you guys are back in Spalding Club with a follow-up date in March, and then it'll be just like old times.
Yeah, I'm super excited because obviously, bam, this thing right here. Bring it, Billy Starks. And then I obviously, don't tell anybody, I help a lot backstage. Yeah, shocker. No, but like, I have a big hand in like helping younger talent now, which obviously has nothing to do with you written down or your notes, but this is my own tangent, is like, I really like agenting matches. Yeah. Which is odd. Like, why would you agent someone to land on their head like that? It's like, I don't agent people to do dumb bumps. That's just what I do. I really like helping younger kids. And like, I have like a crew of people now that like I travel with because I want to get out. And like they catch on like sponges and they're really cool. My one rule to travel with me, simple as this. Don't be an idiot.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
You think that would be a simple rule, right?
Well, maybe not always for some of the folks around
Some
here.
of the folks.
Some of them.
85% of people, idiots.
Hey, you mentioned your main event with Warhorse. Yeah. And last time on the show, we had Jake on finally. Two of the four pillars of St. Louis wrestling, as you guys say. But 2018, January, Central Illinois, Pro Wrestling 01. Yeah, you know where I'm going. Yeah. I have to ask you about this. The most brutal man in wrestling right here sticks a turnbuckle rod, a hook, into poor Warhorse's mouth and throws him through the ropes.
He deserved it.
What the hell, Gary?
Well, you know, as Jake the Snake would say, you got to win the match.
Thankfully, it didn't last too much longer. How did you feel after that?
Obviously, I don't see eye to eye with that man, and we were both just completely competitive at each other. I'll give justice to where it's deserved, and like, the dude's good at what he does. The guy's made an empire and screaming into a camera with face paint on. Congratulations. And I don't take it, like, super talented. But yeah, we got a little crazy that night, which is insane because it's the middle of nowhere, Illinois, where like people were just like straight offended, legitimately about the situation. Like, whew. I remember it had happened, and like obviously, I think Warhorse had mentioned when he was here. As soon as I see him, I'm like, oh, that's bad. And then he hit me. I'm like, well, I guess life goes on and we're not stopping. I mean, that because you're competitive and you have all those adrenaline endorphins kicking and, well, you know, ain't nothing stopping you. Yeah. As soon as he got backstage, it was like, adrenaline gone. Uh-oh, I lost my smile. Better go to the hospital.
That was rough.
It was so, like, it was so vivid. And I remember so vividly because, like, I was like, oh, he's bleeding. The ref is like, he's bleeding bad. And like, I'm like, get out of here, ref. Like, a little blood ain't gonna hurt nobody. And then I see it, and I'm like, oh, that's brown blood. I was like, that's bad. Yeah. I felt bad. But at the end of the day, I think in his story lineage, it kind of helped him build what he is today. Like,
he's like, I got a cool scar. Yeah. He says he wishes the scar was bigger or at least more visible.
Well, hey, you can tell the weather through it now, so.
Yes, exactly. This past November, you were in a huge match in St. Louis Anarchy history, facing off against Jeremy Wyatt for over 1,100 days, the Gateway Heritage Champion. And you got the job done with a discus elbow smash. There are thumbtacks involved. I think you survived the... Did he pile drive you? I think he survived.
No.
He didn't.
No pile drive.
Well, no one survives the pile driver, so I should have known that. But you got the win.
Yeah.
And well, what did that victory mean to you? It had to be one of the biggest.
It was awesome because obviously when Anarchy came back at the Elks Lodge, or like I call it the short, I think someone once called it the Madhouse of not Extreme, of Anarchy. It was like our Hammerstein.
Granite City, Illinois, yeah.
Which was a cool little venue for what it needed to be. Like, the inside was actually a really cool atmosphere in November, but the outside was just brutally hot, which is fine. How many people can go, I'm going to toot my own horn here, toot. How many people can wrestle outside for 1 hour with no BS? I'm not talking about like hour, going to roll out of the ring and, you know, stretch for 35 minutes, SB. I did it. I don't care. So you have two guys going there in July of 2021, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, judges? Sorry, I get hit a lot. So for this thing, that's our big return show, Circus Maximus. We go 1 hour. It had to have been every bit of 100 and something degrees that day. Humidity. I sweated so bad, my red gear bled maroon onto my undergear. Like, it was catastrophically terrible. But two guys went in there, and obviously Wyatt has his own opinions, is very opinionated, and most of his opinions I don't disagree with. He's just kind of a dick about how he presents it. He's one of the best wrestlers in the world. Yeah. If you don't know who Jeremy Wyatt is, please watch this podcast, look up his Twitter, find a match link. He'll tell you how good he is because he deserves everything he's got, plus all the things. He's Jeremy Wyatt. He's one of the best in the world. And then there's me, who at this point in my career, I'll say it, like, I'm really fucking good at what I do.
Yeah.
Really good. And I know what I'm doing. And regardless of stature, size, you're going to have to tear my head off like a dragon to beat me for something like this. So you had two guys going there for an hour, and there was no winner. Storytelling at its finest. Then you flip the pages. November. No time limit. He wants a no DQ match because he's sick of the pure rules. He wants to embarrass me. He wants to fight. Brother, let's do this. There it is. It's like, do they go another hour? Because I'm gonna tell the truth here. There was a possibility where it was in the limelight. We thought about going another hour.
Yeah.
Which, how many people do that on the indies these days?
I thought you guys might.
Exactly. Yeah. It crossed people's minds. Are they going to do another hour? Because then you had a Journey Pro match that went an hour on a Thursday night in front of 500 people, toot their horn on a Thursday night. We go an hour. I forgot what year it was. 2019? Yeah, judges? 2018 or 19. We go an hour. That was like a precursor story into the next hour. And we'd even thought about, like, do we do another hour? That's 3 hours. That's never been done. Like, the only time I can think similar would be Punk Joe, which is one of the most iconic things in Ring of Honor and independent professional wrestling. So it's like, guys are going to go an hour, and then what happens here? It's like, it was finally time to pay off this story.
Right.
You know, like, things are ran its course. I think Jeremy Wyatt, as a professional wrestler, was a phenomenal Gateway Heritage champion. But now, as the kids would say, I'm going to change the game as champion. No, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to defend this title because I feel at this point I am like the Mecca. I am the spirit of St. Louis Anarchy. When I'm long gone or I've gone on to other things or like I've thrown out of business or canceled for whatever reason, like you're going to know Gary J is synonymous with this title in St. Louis Anarchy. That's fine by me too. You know, that's my lineage and that's what I've built up because now, like I've said, I'm helping a lot of these kids that are on the undercard and pre-shows for Anarchy. They travel with me a lot. They're getting better. Shout out to Nick King, Adrian Surge, and Anakin Murphy. I love you guys. Keep doing your thing. People aren't going to talk about them until they see their name on the bright lights, but those are the guys you need to watch. Those are the guys that, like, they're like me. Anakin Murphy is a small kid, a lot like when I first started. He gets a lot of shit because he's small. I get it. He knows that. He knows he's small. You don't got to tell him you need to get bigger. He's probably heard it 1,000 times. So, like, he's got the same aura and attitude I had. He just wants to wrestle. He just wants to soak things in. He's like the SpongeBob of professional wrestling. He's just soaking things in.
I'm sure he's never been called that before.
Exactly.
Gary, a lot of these kids you're talking about, you've seen a lot of your contemporaries as well go down to Florida and appear on AEW Dark and all that. Is that something you want for yourself, or what is your future hold in that regard?
Absolutely. I mean, if I got the opportunity to go down and I would totally do it. And like, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it. Everybody's like, oh, the funny thing with me is like, I would do it, but then like, as you've seen, and I make a joke out of this and deal with it. It's like, just because you do that a couple times, I don't think you should be promoted on every show as AEW Dark Superstar. It's like, I don't need to see that on the flyer. We get it. You did Dark. You made some money. Cool. But like, a lot of people don't watch that. It's on YouTube. It's a cool thing. It's almost like the underground of the underground watches it. You get on TV all the time? Sure. But just because you do a run or two on Dark and lose to somebody, I don't need to see you promoted as AEW Dark Superstar, yada, yada, yada. You know, like...
That's going a little far. It brings to mind, though, something, that mindset, like, guys, don't freak out over these opportunities. Hashtag unsigned and don't care. That's a team with Aaron Williams, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Tell me about that a little bit.
That basically started because me and Aaron would always be in Indiana together. And then we eventually, we never really talked at first in the locker rooms. And then we ended up working together and ended up talking. And I think the first thing we'd mentioned to each other was, well, Shawn Michaels is the best of all time. I was like, well, you're clearly my best friend. Yada, yada, yada. Sorry, I'm on the Seinfeld kick. And fast forward, I had the lobster bisque. No. So anyways, we ended up being best friends. And then we had a lot of the similar mind frame and set. He's been at it a little longer than me, if not the same time. And he's from Ohio. There's a lot of good wrestlers from Ohio. Well, guess what? He's the best one. The Callahans, the J. Chris, the other guy we can't talk about who's been canceled.
A similar name.
Yeah, exactly. Might be his brother. Anyways, he's from Ohio, and he used to ride with Mox all the time. He'd tell me stories of this and that, and he'd always thought, when we first started talking, he's like, man, I just don't get what do we do to get to the next level. I was like, dude, let's quit worrying about getting to the next level. Let's go out there and give the people what they paid for, as Mick Foley would say. Let's go out there and make sure when this show's over, they're going to remember who we are. So that, on top of just being I don't know, it's like peas and carrots. Like I said before we started filming, yin and yang. Yeah. He's the complete opposite of me. The dude is super cool, very relaxed and chill, great sense of humor, doesn't cuss. I've never heard the man cuss.
Wow, that is the opposite of you.
Yeah, exactly. I cuss like a sailor.
Yeah.
But that's what works about it. But the same mind frame is unsigned and don't care stands for doesn't necessarily mean we're totally against signing contracts and doing all the company stuff, because obviously, sure, you want to make money in this business. But we want to kind of be the other attitude of you can make money and do things your way. Mm-hmm. It's okay. You don't have to conform to well, gotta get all the clout on Twitter, so-and-so books me. It's good to have clout and have people talk about you online. That's a great feeling. But how many people are really paying for tickets that are talking about you online? Yeah. You have your majority of your casual fan is the person I want people to buy tickets to interact and want to love Gary J. Casual fan loves wrestling. They just want to go enjoy. They're not there to be super sensitive and cry because so-and-so won and lost. I know everybody's so afraid about saying things these days, and that's fine. There's a right and a wrong. Like I said, don't be an idiot. But let's not lose frame of how cool professional wrestling is. I get so excited talking to my friends. You can ask Sean, who's sitting over there twiddling his thumbs. We talk about wrestling I just like a kid on Christmas.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And I get to be a part of this, and this is what I chose to do, and it's worked. And I can give people the middle finger that told me you're too small, you won't do this, you won't do that. Yeah, you're damn right I'm a little petty and a little spite there, because there's always going to be. Sometimes that motivates me. But the unsigned and don't care mantra is this is who we are. And together we're super strong as a team, and it's super fun working with him because he is so technically sound and he's a good striker. Yeah. I'm a really good striker and just so erratic and chaotic, it's just a match made in heaven. Or hardcore heaven. Sorry, I'm thinking it's Tajiri, and that was it. Carino right now, actually, when Carino's hey, I'm going to take a brain buster. Oh, my face is bleeding.
Gary, we're running a little bit short on time. I don't want to miss the opportunity to ask you for a wrestling horror story.
Oh, man.
The baddest, the maddest, the saddest, the ring, the locker room, the road.
Oh, man.
I know it's hard to decide, but what can you tell us today?
Well, I've been wrestling for about 20 years, so about 20 years of sadness. So, man, let's think. Okay, so just wrestling horror stories. Anytime you go to, the South or Tennessee, Arkansas, you're always going to run into these 40-milers. And when you first start off, you don't know any difference. You're just I just want to travel and wrestle. I just want to learn. Well, as you know, 40-milers that will just wear their favorite Undertaker shirt out to the ring, don't care about anything but themselves.
You're talking about the people who just work in their hometowns. They never work everywhere else.
And that's fine if that's what you want to do, but obviously that's not what I ever wanted to do. I wanted to get out there and get my name out there and figure out life. So, like, I don't know how many shitbags I've ran into where, like, they'll straight look at me. And this is a story. We're in Arkansas, and it's me and the Little Patriot tagging against these two guys. Now, if your name's a Little Patriot...
I had to double check on it. The Little Patriot. Okay, I heard correctly.
Yep,
okay.
The Little Patriot. What would your gear be?
Well, I would think that I would be probably a little person dressed as the Patriot Del Wilkes. With a mask.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Good
right.
physique.
All right.
Yeah, let's do this.
That's not what happened.
Oh.
So I'm in match 4 against these older guys that I don't know anything. And when I went up to say hi to them and approach them about said wrestling contest that night, they blew me off and treated me like I was a piece of shit. I was like, oh, well, this is going to be a great night. I was like, so who's my tag partner? Well, he's the ref for match 1, 2, and 3. I'm like, oh, we're match 4. Beautiful. Awesome. Hell yeah. I was like, Little Patriot. I was like, well, he's clearly going to put some American flag something on. So obviously going over, I tried to talk to the older gentleman. They're like, you listen, Q, we don't do spots and this and that. And they're like, I was like, cool. All I want to do is hit you with a drop toe hold. Because at this point, I don't care. Right. I don't care how long I've been wrestling. They've treated me to the point where, like, they didn't respect me. I'm not going to respect you.
It's not worth it.
There's no reason.
Yeah.
No reason at all. I'm just like, whatever, man, drop toe hold. He's like, huh, huh. Okay, man, Biker Bob. So Little Patriot puts his gear on. And I'm like, here we go. Great Sasuke mask. I was like, whatever. So we go out there and...
He found it somewhere, you know.
Well, he had to ref match 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7. He was only match 4. So we go out there and we do this. And so I don't even remember his name. I think I just referred to him as Biker Bob. Hits me with a super kick for the finish in the gut. Before, he didn't go for like they call it like a TNA. He didn't go for like a breadbasket kick. He went like, I'll hit you with a super kick and then I'll pin you or put you in a stretch or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I don't care, man. I want to go home. Legitimately.
Yeah.
So he straight was like, blah, 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 finish. So I was like, super kick. He couldn't get his leg high enough to kick me. So he hits me in the gut and I just go over to my stomach. I'm laying flat on my stomach and he pins me.
Did he turn you over?
No.
He didn't.
He looks at the ref and goes, this is the finish. I'm gonna cuss. I apologize. I go, hey, dumb fuck. I'm on my stomach. He goes, oh, yeah, good point. So I roll my back. I lay there at 1, 2, 3. I roll up out of the ring. I start laughing, just go to the back. I talk to Matt and Jake. I was like, can we go now? This is awful. Like, this just happened to me.
What a vet, man. He knows.
Me or him?
Him. Hey, oh, man.
Yeah, like, that's just one of the stories. And, like, to me, everybody needs to experience that kind of stuff because then it just makes you go, you know what? It's okay if things don't go according to plan because they're not going to always go according to plan because Biker Bob needs to get his shit in.
Yeah.
You know, like... you know, this is the finish. No, it's not. I'm on my stomach. Oh. And like he gets backstage, he tried to play it off. He was like, I just tried to put you in a bow and arrow. I was like, no, man, you tried to pin me. You idiot. Good night.
And you know, wrestling fans, wherever you may be watching this, whether you're in the United States, small town, big city, maybe you're in England or elsewhere abroad, we all have a Biker Bob in our towns and in our wrestling federations. Make sure you know what you're getting involved with before you wrestle Biker Bob. There's your PSA for the day.
Exactly.
Gary,
do your research before you get into the game.
How can the fans follow you all over social media?
Well, if you'd like to follow me on Twitter or unfollow me, whatever, at Stiff Robo Ginger, because I love RoboCop. Who doesn't? The remake I loved. And if you want to find me on Instagram, which I had to make a new one, it was a big trouble thing. And technology is not Gary J's friend. I had to ask 7 people how to make a new Instagram. So that is, I think it is Unsigned I Don't Care on Instagram. Buy our sweet merch at fullygimmick.com. And then on Facebook, it's just Gary J, J-Y. So if you'd like to partake in conversation with me, buy my merch, tell me how terrible I am, talk about how great my Kramer hair is today, let's do it.
Yeah.
Or if you want to book me on your show to fight you, let's do that as well, because I like to throw hands and pay my bills.
Biker Bob, take note. The show is on Twitter at Grandel Wrestle. We're on Instagram at Grandel Wrestling. I'm on Twitter as well, not canceled yet. And me and Gary J, we're never going to get canceled.
No.
Because, we're good people.
What's the one rule I said
Really
earlier?
great people. What's that?
Don't be an idiot.
Don't be an idiot. Don't be an idiot. At the Ben Simon. So make sure you follow me on Twitter at the Ben Simon. Today's show was engineered by Key Henry, always a real asset to the crew. We wish Joey O'Farrell, the producer, the best as he's out ill today. This has been the Grandel Wrestling Podcast at Midcoast Media at Midtown St. Louis. If you'd like to record your show here, hit up Chris Denman. He's the owner. You can do your podcast, whatever you want here. It's a great facility. Gary, I wish you the best. A long and prosperous title reign with the Gateway Heritage Belt.
Hell yeah. I mean, honestly, it just depends how long I'm roommates with the booker. Let's see how long I have this title.
So, with nothing more to be said, this is Ben Simon saying until next time, so long from the Show Me State.